On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Slice the Cake's Odyssey to the West. It's real Shakespearean, isn't it, Jaryn?
Yes, it is.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bronze Medalist podcast. My name is Kayle, back again this week. I don't know why I said back again. I'm always here. And here with me is my loyal acolyte,
Jaryn Homiston, who is back again. Because I guess I was back
You
the
were
last
gone once,
episode,
so,
and now I'm back again.
Now every time you're going to be back again.
Yep.
We're always going to assume that you were gone the previous week. It'll be a running gag. Everyone will laugh.
Everybody, years later, when we're on Bronze Medalist episode 5093.
Oh, God. It'll be our bazinga.
Yeah.
And that word, just saying the word made me feel bad. So, we're talking about Slice the Cake's Odyssey to the West. But first, we got to talk about our lives, because that's how this works. What have you been up to in the last week, Jaryn?
Oh, gosh. I'm still recovering from ACTF. There's still a little bit.
Physically or mentally?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
But yeah, I have made some questionable decisions on how late I stay up. So I'm tired all the time.
How late are we talking?
For me, 2:00 in the morning is pushing it, and I know that's not pushing it for
those
a lot
are rookie
of people.
numbers. You got to pump those numbers up.
Yeah, I know, but
Those are rookie numbers.
2:00 is late for me. So I've been catching up on homework, and that's about it.
Oh, interesting. I put out another fan talk video about the new Listener album. Really good stuff. Spoken word rock band from Kansas City. Absolutely love that record. Absolutely love that band. So yeah, that's a recommendation from me. Go check out Being Empty, Being Filled by Listener. You won't be disappointed. It's very, very good. Also, I went to Burger Time for the first time.
Ooh, was it good? I've heard good things. I've never been there.
It was okay. The fries were really good. The burger was it was a little too tough. It was charbroiled the way that Burger King does them.
Okay.
And I don't care for Burger King burgers, so this was kind of in the same boat. They also put way too much mayo on it. Way too much mayo. I always accuse Wendy's of putting too much mayo on their burgers. This made Wendy's burgers look like a desert.
Oh man.
A mayo desert. It was just insane. And they also snuck some onions in there. Like I don't care for onions on my burgers, but on most of them, if you don't ask for it without the onion on, it's usually just a nice, neat little ring. But they did it the McDonald's way, where they're little bits of onions.
Oh, so you can't just pick it off.
Yeah, and I didn't even notice that, and I was like, that's an onion right there. Okay. But overall, it was decent. I didn't regret eating it.
Yeah.
It was also a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. Just got a double cheeseburger, and it was a lot bigger than I anticipated. Yeah.
Still get it down okay, though?
Oh, yeah, I still got it down. I still got it down. The Dr. Pepper the good doctor was there to help me.
The good doctor.
The good doctor. What else has been inflicted on me in the last week? Not much, I suppose. And we're going to get to this album in record time.
I know. I do have, I guess, a fun story that most people probably don't know about.
Please, we can't get to the album this early. We're only 4 minutes in.
We gotta fluff a little more.
We gotta vamp a little bit.
Yeah. So I work for a company called Super Duper Funtime Entertainment.
Yes.
And it's a mouthful. There's some acronym, but it doesn't I guess it doesn't spell anything, so I don't know.
Let's just be clear. This is a fun story, so you're not about to trash talk them, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay,
good. It's a really cool gig. I'm a huge comic book fan, and I mean, who isn't nowadays?
I'm not.
But growing up, it wasn't cool to be into Star Wars and comic books, and I was, and then now I'm in college, and it's hip.
Everybody
and
likes it.
Everybody's an expert once the movie comes out.
Oh, yeah, that's how it works.
So it's a really cool gig because what it is, it's a children's entertainment business where I and other actors get to dress up in like really awesome, like well done costumes and go portray like Captain America and Batman and all these people. And since I'm a big long-haired Scandinavian-looking dude, I play Kristoff all the time from Frozen.
I have seen you in pictures in that costume. You pull it off.
Thank you. So that he's like my favorite because most of the time, like both boys and girls are happy to see me. Like when you're Captain America, you get to the party, like the little boy's like, yeah, but then his sister's like, you're gross, and then she like trash talks you the entire time you're there.
If only when she grows up, she's gonna be like Captain America. My goodness.
But I get to do that this weekend. We get to go on kind of a road trip. We go down to Bismarck one day, and then we get to
Bismarck. How exotic!
But it's so we get I get paid extra to travel, and it's really fun. But anyway, I'll be Kristoff because it's a princess ball, and so I get to be Kristoff. And on one of the days of this like convention that we're going to, my girlfriend gets to be Anna from Frozen.
Boy.
So I'm excited because I get to be I'm not a huge I'm not against it, but I'm also not huge for PDA.
Okay.
But now it's in my character to have PDA.
You have an excuse now.
Yeah, so I get to
you can act extra romantic without feeling weird about it.
Exactly. So that's that. I'm really looking forward to that this weekend.
Jaryn, and this weekend is when Jaryn finds out he's really into role play.
Oh gosh, no. I'm just looking for an excuse to see my girlfriend. She lives a few hours away, so.
Yep, that is a cool story.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
All right, now we got to get to the album, I guess. Unless you've got any other things to save us. Oh my God.
Well,
how dare we?
This has to do with the podcast. My girlfriend also informed me that on our Instagram, the picture of sweaty me from last week has the most amount of likes.
Yeah,
or
we got
hearts.
a ton of likes. I don't know if it's because I put a ton of hashtags on it, but it's got 35 hearts, which is not overly impressive, but
for somebody just starting out,
in the scope of our Instagram page, that is definitely impressive. I'm wondering how the picture we took of me before we started is gonna fare. Probably not as well.
She just was like, oh yeah, it got a ton of likes, and I was like, why? It's me sweaty post run, and I'm sweaty now because I just got done running. But
I'm pretty sure there was, I don't know if it was, it's hard to tell when something is a bot, but there was a girl that was I can't remember what they commented, but there was a girl that commented on it. It was like, ooh.
It might have been my girlfriend.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't?
I don't believe it was your girlfriend.
Okay.
I know your girlfriend gave it a heart, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, that might have been.
Because I know she follows the page. Some girl commented on it. So, yeah.
Probably a bot.
Probably. I assume that on Tinder. If I get a match, I usually assume it's a bot.
Yeah.
That's my life. I don't know why I even bother with Tinder, but I don't think I've ever actually there's one time where I've talked to one of my matches and then immediately was like, I don't want to do that is the level of awkwardness that I live with, where I can't even talk to women over the internet. I don't know. I'm hopeless. Now it's time.
Yes.
It's time to talk about this album. As we said in the intro, this is Odyssey to the West by Slice the Cake. Did you also listen to Odyssey to the Gallows, which is a companion piece? Okay.
I did not.
So they're meant to be listened to together. It's all right if you didn't listen to it.
Okay.
And for those of you out there who are interested in checking out this album, you don't have to listen to it. I would highly recommend it, and I would recommend that you listen to it as well. You're meant to listen to it before Odyssey to the West. So Odyssey to the Gallows is a half-hour long single track. It's a spoken word ambient piece of ambient music that has a really interesting story behind it. But before we get to that, we got to talk about the band itself. So Slice the Cake is an unconventional band, and it's the type of band that has popped up more and more as digital elements have become more and more common in today's music scene, which is a studio band that does not perform live. and their members can be spread out across three different continents, or not three different continents, two different continents in this case, but you can do that. And that's precisely what Slice the Cake was before they broke up, which is another thing we'll talk about here shortly. So you had Gareth Mason, who was the lead vocalist, who is from England. Then you've got Jonas Johansson, who is from Sweden. This band had two composers. That's right. This is a metal band that has composers, and they were Jack Richardson and Jake Lowe. Jack Richardson was the primary songwriter, at the very least, for this album. I'm not sure about their previous work, but this album is absolutely one that needed like a composer. When you think about it. It is such a mammoth piece of music, and they're spread out all over the world. They only did a couple of live performances throughout their career with people standing in for different members of the band who couldn't make it. And all that came before the year 2016. April 1st, 2016. The day that this album was released was also Doomsday for Slice the Cake. Now, fans of Slice the Cake had been waiting for almost 4 years at that point for another release. Their previous album, The Man with No Face, and a B-side album that came out shortly afterwards, which was called Other Slices, which was just like B-sides and other recordings that they had made that didn't fit with any of their other records. So fans have been waiting for 4 years for Odyssey to the West to come out. And there had been tales, basically, of turmoil happening within the band. A couple of months before the album was released, Gareth Mason quit the band, saying that Odyssey to the West was going to be his last recording with the band. And the reason for that was later revealed after Odyssey was released. There had been a falling out between Gareth and Jack Richardson, the composer. Apparently Gareth is kind of a douchebag.
Yeah.
Amazing vocalist, amazing lyricist, douchebag. And so he and Jonas Johansson had conspired to release Odyssey to the West without the permission of Jack Richardson or Jake Lowe, who were the primary songwriters and wrote basically 100% of the album, at least musically. I'm pretty sure Gareth Mason contributed most of the lyrics, but I'm not 100% sure on that. They did not have permission to release these tracks. In fact, after Gareth quit, Jack Richardson had wanted to find what he called a new home for his composition. He wanted to bring it to a different band and make this album with them, even though the album, for all intents and purposes, was done. It got released, and we can listen to it, and it is a monumental work. It's very good, and it feels polished for the most part, but he still didn't want to release it. He didn't feel good about this version of the album with this band. And he tried to reach out to Jonas Johansson, who completely ignored him. I don't know if he and Gareth were much better friends. He was completely ignored. The album was released on April 1st, 2016, with no prior warning, because what they were doing was technically legal, but not approved of.
Okay.
So a lot of people were a little concerned that maybe it was illegal and that this album would not be around, that it would not be around for everybody to enjoy. But ultimately, Jack Richardson said that he was very glad that people really liked the album and that people were enjoying it as much as they did. But ultimately, it was the product of something that should not have happened, and sort of a really shady dealing. So talking about the album in itself, it made a lot of people's year-end lists, but it sort of snuck in there because most people, most music reviewers, whether it's on Metal Sucks or Metacritic or anything like that, most critics did not know that this album was released. The Man with No Face, when it came out, was very well liked and very well received, but it had been 4 years since anyone had heard anything from Slice the Cake, other than we're working on it. And all of a sudden, this album comes out with absolutely no warning from a band that is not really a huge name anymore. Avenged Sevenfold can do that, and they did that last year with The Stage, and they got away with it because they're Avenged Sevenfold. They can put out an album without any warning because people know who they are. People had forgotten about Slice the Cake. And so it snuck in right at the end of the year for a lot of people who discovered this album through word of mouth and were like, holy crap, this is amazing. This is really great. And then the controversy surrounded it sort of propelled it to a whole nother level. But as I said, yes, the album itself. What are your thoughts? What are your opening thoughts?
Wow, it was good. I really liked it. The all of the spoken word stuff, like at the beginning and at the end, and just throughout the singing and everything was just so like emotionally raw.
Yeah.
I wanted to. It felt like I was in the studio and I wanted to take the headphones off and walk in there and like give him a hug and
Yeah.
like listen, it's gonna be okay. The line that caught me, and I was listening to it while I was running. The line that caught me was, and I'm paraphrasing here. It was something along the lines of, "How do you solve something
Oh yeah.
that has lost, like that doesn't
Yeah,
matter
yeah.
anymore?" And then it's like you can't because it now matters to somebody else.
I said Shakespearean in the intro of this, and that is very appropriate. The language that is used in these lyrics is very flowery, I suppose, compared to anything else that you'll hear like it, any other progressive deathcore or death metal outfit. You do not hear lyrics like this on any other sort of record. So it's hard to remember them 100% adequately because we
Yeah.
don't really talk that way anymore. But I know exactly the line that you have in mind. I think it's, how do you rectify the ramifications of a tale that's no longer relevant?
Yeah, that's what it is.
The answer is you don't. I'm pretty sure that's the
Yep,
line.
that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Or I think it's reconcile instead of rectify.
Yeah.
But yeah, the language on this is just beautiful. The only problem that I have with it is Gareth Mason's standard vocal, his standard death growl, is not very intelligible. His spoken word bits, obviously, and then there are some absolutely soaring bits of clean vocals sprinkled throughout. You can hear some of it on the very first track on the record, and then Castle in the Sky, which is one of my favorite tracks on there, and we'll kind of talk about the significance of this album for me, because this is a very significant album to me personally, more than just like, oh, it's really good. Like it's very important to me. Yeah, there's a lot of just soaring, clean vocals on this every now and then, and some really, really interesting vocal choices. If you remember Dark Carnival, I should bring up the tracks here because there are different parts. There are different acts, and it's it's spread out like a play basically. Performing. So the different acts or the different movements, I guess you could consider Odyssey to the Gallows to be its own part. And the interesting thing that I was going to say about Odyssey to the Gallows before is the ambient track that you hear behind it isn't something that they just created. They used a very stock effect in audio software, and it's in Audacity, which is the program we're recording in. It's called Paul Stretch, where you can take a piece of recording and stretch it out for a very long time. So they took a song off of the Man with No Face and they stretched it out to 30 minutes long, and that is the backing track behind it, and it works beautifully. You wouldn't expect that to just like, oh, we'll just take the song and stretch it out to 30 minutes and see what it's like. It works wonderfully. It's uncanny how well it works. So the different acts of this album, we've got The Exile, part 1 and 2, and then there's Stone and Silver, and there are 3 parts to that. There's Westward Bound. There are 2 parts. There's Castle in the Sky. That's called Castle in the Sky Part 2. There was a song on Other Slices. Part of the title was Castle in the Sky. There's other parts to that track as well. Then you've got Unending Waltz, which is sort of by itself. It's not a part of any other act. It still fits in with the story of this record, but it stands apart from some of the other ones. Then you've got Ash and Rust, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then finally it finishes up with the last 2 tracks, Destiny's Fool and The Holy Mountain, which, and most of these tracks, especially the parts that are part of a different movement, just go straight from one end to the other, much like Dream Theater that we listen to. It's a very prog metal thing to seamlessly move from one track to the next, especially when you've got a story to tell like this album does. So what were you able to decipher about the sort of the tale that this album is trying to tell?
It's obviously like the dude was in pain. Like I said, it was like emotionally raw. Castles in the Sky was the one I guess I picked the most up on.
Well, and because it's all clean vocals too,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and he talks about so I listened to the album just as one complete thing again, I didn't see all the song names. I think it was that song. It reminded me of like a gospel track,
Yeah,
like Christian type of music.
and that is absolutely a correct sentiment.
Yeah.
There is a lot of religious themes. So the album basically is about a pilgrim who leaves his beloved behind to go west on this pilgrimage to some holy mountain of some sort. And there is some insinuation, at least my interpretation of it, is that he didn't just leave his love, that she was dead, perhaps. He talks a lot about one of the lines from Odyssey to the Gallows is a rose lays with her now. And to me, that suggests that she is dead and he was leaving a rose on her grave or something. There's a lot of interpretations that could be found. I don't know if there is an official breakdown of the storyline anywhere, but that's how I choose to interpret it, is that his beloved had passed away, which is what propels him to go on this harrowing emotional journey, this pilgrimage to whatever this holy mountain is supposed to be. And so, yeah, there is a ton of emotion just shoved into all of these lyrics, and it works really, really well.
Yeah, and one of the lines I think is like, "I'll meet you again in your castle in the sky."
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is to me another thing that suggests that she is dead.
Yeah, yeah. That's when you said that you had thought she died. I was like, that makes sense to me because
Yeah.
like that whole thing is basically to me like a letter to her being like, "I'll see you again," like
Yeah.
there.
And ultimately, there's not a happy ending to this album. Much like the band, there is not a happy ending to this album. The last two tracks really establish our protagonist, this pilgrim, ultimately thinks that his mission has failed. Calls the track Destiny's Fool. He refers to himself as that. And ultimately, he seems very disappointed with the result of this journey to this mountain, that all this pain was not worth it. He leaves the last line on the record is, "I'm sorry, but I have nothing left to say." You know, I've got nothing to show for all of this struggle and pain and everything that I've gone through on this journey. And, you know, I've finished it and I've got nothing to show for it, which I think is very powerful. And so this album resonated me a lot the first time that I had listened to it, which was about a year ago, a little over a year ago. I've mentioned I'm a big D&D player, and so right around the time that I got into this track, or into this record rather, I had been the DM of a campaign for quite a while, but I had never gotten to play. And so the very first character that I had gotten to play had died in this campaign, and music has always been a really big inspiration for characters for me. And so there were two bands that I was getting into right at that time. One was Slice the Cake, and the other one was This Will Destroy You, which is a post-rock band. And so my character sort of became this, from listening to this especially, he became not a pilgrim, but he was a cleric, so a holy warrior, or a priest rather. A paladin is more close to a holy warrior, but he was a cleric who was on this journey from the east to the west. And the character of Rose, which is more or less how the pilgrim refers to his deceased betrothed or beloved. The character of Rose became this woman that he failed to rescue. And so this album really informed that character, which would go on to become, alongside the first character who he had replaced, one of the most surprisingly profound things I've ever created in a way. And most of that is thanks to the interactions that I had with all the other players who were fantastic.
Yeah.
And you know, some of the best role playing I've had. And there was a lot of just really emotionally heavy conversations, and a lot of that was informed by the tone of this record, much in the same way that the character before him was informed by the tone of All of a Sudden I Miss Everyone by Explosions in the Sky. A lot of post-rock bands tend to influence me in my the things that I create. And song titles especially. Destiny's Fool was a big one for this character, his name is Cade. Destiny's Fool was a very important song for him. And then I started listening to some Opeth as well, and that became part of Cade. There's a lot of similar themes in Opeth records that we find on Odyssey, and it all just kind of coalesced. So these albums can, for me at the very least, they find interesting ways to be relatable. You know, a lot of people identify the most with music that they listened to when they were like 14, but I was 21 when I listened to this, and it still resonates with me much more, I think, than a lot of stuff that I listened to when I was 14, because a lot of stuff that I listened to back then was not nearly as dense and heavy and genuinely emotionally gripping as this composition is. But yeah, that I've got nothing left to say.
That was beautiful.
To quote the record, I've got nothing left to say.
No, it was, I like you said that it finds a weird way to not influence, but just kind of like that
Grip you.
Yeah, that it grips you. Cause, I listened to this when I was running just before this, and I had just gotten off. I run a Bible study. Mm-hmm. And so it's weird to think, like, you'd never think, or I would never have thought that like metal music, or like that somebody doing like a death growl and stuff like that, would ever make me like spiritually think. But like as I was running, there were, like you were saying, there were these religious themes in there, and it just like made me ponder all the things that I've like learned leading a Bible study and having been in like a few before. And it was just weird because I was like, this isn't the type of music that you'd think would like spiritually open you up.
Well, and speaking of that, this is not we're not going to be listening to this next week, but at some point, probably March or May, whichever I decide is going to be metalcore March or whatnot, I'm definitely going to have you check out Silent Planet, which is a Christian metalcore band. They're absolutely fantastic. I'm wearing their shirt right now. I wear their shirt all the time because they're probably one of my favorite bands, definitely in my top 5. They're absolutely fantastic, so we're going to listen to them in the future. But next week, what we are going to be listening to is an album that I was listening to earlier today. It's an album that I also really like. It's by a band called Deaf Heaven. They're an atmospheric black metal band, or some people call them black gaze, which is a combination of shoegaze and black metal. There's this sort of amalgamation of post-rock and black metal and shoegaze and all of this sort of stuff, this very interesting fusion that's come together to create a sound that has black metal elements, but is not nearly as intimidating as most black metal works are. It's a much more welcoming sound, I think. So the album in particular is going to be Sunbather. So it's Sunbather by Deaf Heaven. Really, really good album, and I'm excited to have you listen to it. I think that covers just about everything. We're at about time. So, before we go, to plug our social medias, check us out on Facebook at the Bronze Metalist Podcast. You can also check us out on Twitter and Instagram and MySpace. No, not MySpace.
We're bringing it back.
You hear that, Tom? We're going to revive MySpace.
Did you see,
my words.
Like 2 years ago, I don't know if you know who Mac Miller is.
I know the name.
Okay, he
wrote that song "I Hate College," right?
No, that's Asher Roth.
Oh, okay.
Similar style.
All right.
But I saw it like 3 times on the TV in like 2 weeks. He was like supposed to be the face of MySpace, and they were like bringing it back. And I only saw 3 commercials, and I was like, I personally never had a MySpace, but I was like, why? Too young. Yeah, I was like, why are you bringing this back? And then it died, and I never heard anything about it again.
I know a fair amount of bands still try to use MySpace and stuff like that. Like, it's kind of become sort of a music sharing thing, which was always an element to it, I think. But as far as I know, musicians is kind of the only group that still really uses MySpace all that much. And that's just from hearsay. I don't know if that's actually true.
Yeah.
So yeah, social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Check us out, Bronze Metalist Podcast. Listen to us on iTunes. Give us a review. Jaryn, what else can people do?
Yeah, listen. If you listen on Libsyn, I'm sure there's like a reviewing type deal. You can leave a review.
Comments.
Yeah, leave some nice comments. I'm sure if we were having a down day, it'd be nice to go read some comments about this podcast.
Lovely, yeah. There's also YouTube. You can check us out on YouTube. All our episodes get uploaded there in video format. So if you just want to pull it up on your laptop and leave it run for some background noise, we won't be offended, I promise.
And go watch Fan Talk.
Yeah.
You get to see the beautiful face behind the beautiful voice.
Oh, yeah. You get to look at my bespeckled face. Like I said, this week I had talked about Listener, which is a spoken word rock band. Really good stuff. You all should check them out. Watch Fan Talk. Give me some views. I don't know. I'm running out of steam here, so we should probably wrap this up. My name is Kayle.
My name is Jaryn.
Open your eyes. Wait, no. We have nothing left to say. He still did it again. All right, that's